The crystal flute of champagne felt weightless until it slipped from my grasp, the sound of it shattering on the marble floor of the reception hall, a violent echo of my own heart breaking. Every head turned, a sea of startled faces, but I was frozen. Across the room, Liam, my husband of a mere 6 hours, stood like a statue, his eyes glued to his phone. All the color had vanished from his face, leaving a hollowed-out mask I'd never seen on the man I believed I knew better than my own soul. "I have to go," he said, his voice a ghost of itself as he finally tore his gaze from the screen to meet mine. Those 4 simple words were a battering ram, demolishing the perfect world we had just promised to build. If you've ever had your world torn apart in the blink of an eye, hit that subscribe button. It's totally free, and you'll never miss another story of heartbreak, strength, and the winding path to a second chance. Your support is what allows us to keep sharing these raw, emotional journeys together. Now let's go back to how my perfect day became a living nightmare. I had daydreamed about this exact moment for years. During the most brutal shifts in med school through endless nights fueled by caffeine and sheer will, the image of Liam waiting for me at the altar was the one thing that kept me going. Not once in those fantasies did the scene end with me watching him walk away from me, his wedding band still gleaming under the reception lights, leaving me alone in a room full of our friends and family. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. We met when I was a second-year resident at City Central Hospital. I was the frazzled, sleep-deprived pediatric resident who managed to spill a full cup of coffee all over his impeccably tailored suit in the hospital cafeteria. Liam was the head of a prestigious architectural firm who, instead of being furious, just smiled and asked for my phone number. "Doctors should probably get more sleep," he chuckled, dabbing at the stain with a napkin. "How about I buy you dinner? You know, for a time when you're awake enough to taste it." Liam was my calm in the storm. As I navigated the chaotic, high-stakes world of medical training, he became my anchor. He would slip little notes of encouragement into the pockets of my scrubs and have takeout waiting for me after a grueling 30-hour shift. If I fell asleep in the middle of a sentence, he'd just gently wrap a blanket around me. "You're going to save so many little lives, Dr. Maya," he'd whisper, his voice thick with a pride that made my heart swell. After 3 years of this steady, unwavering support, he proposed. It happened in the quiet hospital garden where we often stole a few minutes for lunch. It was simple, meaningful, and utterly perfect, just like Liam. Our engagement lasted a 1.5 years, just long enough for me to finish my residency and land a coveted attending position in the pediatric department. The wedding planning was almost suspiciously easy. Liam took charge of the majority of it, checking in with me on the big decisions but protecting me from the overwhelming details. "Your brain is needed for more important things than choosing between ivory and ecru napkins," he'd say with a kiss. Our wedding day began with a clear, perfect sky. My mother wept softly as she helped me into my gown, a simple, off-the-shoulder A-line with subtle beading. "Your father would have been so proud of you," she whispered, her hands trembling as she adjusted my veil. As I walked down that aisle, the world faded away until there was only Liam. I saw his eyes fill with tears as I got closer, and when he took my hands in his, it was that familiar feeling of coming home that I only ever felt with him. "You are my start and my always," he vowed, his voice solid despite the emotion shaking his shoulders. "You are the family I choose, the home my heart returns to, the love I never thought I'd find. I promised in return," my own voice choked with happy tears. The ceremony was a flawless dream. We exchanged rings under a sprawling oak tree decorated with white roses, surrounded by the people we loved most. When the officiant finally said, "You may now kiss the bride," Liam's kiss felt like a sacred seal on our past, our present, and our future. The reception kicked off with our first dance to a song by the Lumineers that had been playing on the radio during our first real date. Liam held me so close, whispering inside jokes into my ear that made me laugh into his shoulder. I remember thinking, with a clarity that now feels cruel, how incredibly lucky I was. I had found the one person who saw all my flaws and loved me because of them, not in spite of them. Dr. and Mr. Sterling, the DJ announced, even though I was keeping my maiden name for work. Applause washed over us as we made our way to our table. My best friend and maid of honor, Sarah, gave a beautiful toast about watching our love story unfold. To Maya and Liam, she finished, her glass held high, proof that a coffee stain can change your life for the better. Liam's best man gave a speech full of jokes about how much Liam had changed since meeting me. This guy used to live at the office, he teased. Now he's out the door at 5 on the dot because, and I quote, Maya might have a rare night off and I'll be damned if I miss a second of it. The evening was perfect. We cut the cake, a 3-tiered lemon and elderflower creation that Liam had personally selected after sampling cakes from 5 different bakeries. He had been determined to find one that wasn't overly sweet because he knew I preferred more delicate flavors. That was Liam, always focused on the little things, the details that made me happy. I was chatting with an old friend from medical school when I saw him glance at his phone. I didn't think anything of it at first, probably just more well wishes from people who couldn't be there. But then his face changed. I saw his confident, easy posture just collapse. He was reading a message and his face grew paler with every passing second as he read it over and over. I excused myself and walked toward him, a knot of concern tightening in my stomach. Liam, is everything okay? He looked up, but it was like his eyes were looking right through me. I have to go, he said. The words were flat, distant. Go? Go where? I asked, laughing nervously as I reached for his hand. He flinched away from my touch. I can't explain right now. I have to leave. The music was still playing, but in our little bubble, everything had come to a grinding halt. The guests nearest to us were starting to notice, their smiles faltering. Liam, you're scaring me, I whispered, my voice urgent. Whatever it is, we can handle it together. We just promised to, remember? I'm sorry, Maya. His eyes finally focused on me, and they were filled with a terrible, unreadable emotion. I made a mistake. What mistake? Liam, please talk to me. I can't do this. He started backing away, bumping into a server who was carrying a tray of champagne. The sound of the glasses crashing to the floor made everyone turn. Can't do what? My voice was rising, panic clawing at my throat. We just got married. I'm sorry, he repeated, already turning to walk away. I have to go. I stumbled after him, my wedding dress bunched up in my fists, pleading for an answer as 100 conversations died and 100 pairs of eyes followed us. By the time I made it to the lobby, Sarah had caught up, her face a mask of confusion and fear. What is going on? She demanded, grabbing my arm to keep me steady. I don't know, I choked out. He got a text, and now he's leaving. We burst through the main doors just in time to see the taillights of Liam's silver sedan disappearing down the long driveway. He was gone, leaving behind nothing but the smell of exhaust and 1,000 unanswered questions. Sarah ran to check the parking lot, but I just stood there, frozen on the steps. My beautiful wedding dress felt like a cruel joke, a costume from a life that had ended just minutes after it began. She returned, her face confirming what I already knew. His car's gone, she said softly. She pulled me into her arms as my knees finally gave out, and I collapsed against her. Inside, 200 guests were waiting for a bride and groom who would never have their first dance, never cut their cake, never return. My perfect day, my perfect love, had just been revealed as the most devastating lie of my life, and I had absolutely no idea why. In the weeks that followed, the hospital became my only refuge. I signed up for every extra shift I could, staying late into the night. The sterile, predictable hallways of City Central felt infinitely safer than our apartment, which was still cluttered with wedding gifts I couldn't bring myself to open, let alone return. Dr. Reynolds, you've been on call for 36 hours straight. Dr. Chen, my department head, said with a concerned frown about 6 weeks after what I had started calling the incident. "This isn't healthy." "I'm fine," I lied, keeping my eyes on a patient's chart. "The Miller case is complex, and we're short-staffed this weekend." He let out a long sigh and put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Maya, I've always admired your work ethic, but this isn't about dedication anymore. This is about running away. Go home. That's an order. Home." The word felt like a lie. My mom had stayed with me for the first 2 weeks, a silent, grieving presence who handled the awful logistics of returning gifts and fielding calls from concerned relatives. Sarah had come over and packed up all the wedding photos and the few things Liam had left behind, storing the boxes in her garage because the sight of them made me physically ill. But eventually, they had to go back to their own lives, and I was left alone with the single screaming question that echoed in the silence. Why? I hadn't heard a word from Liam. His phone went straight to voicemail and his social media accounts were deleted. His business partner practically ran in the other direction when I saw him at a coffee shop near the hospital. It was as if Liam Sterling had been erased from existence, taking any hope of an explanation with him. Until David, a mutual friend from Liam's rock climbing gym, brought his nephew into the ER with a broken arm. I saw the flash of panic in his eyes when he spotted me at the nurse's station. "Maya, hey, how are you holding up?" he asked, his discomfort so thick you could cut it with a knife. "I'm getting by," I replied, forcing the practiced, hollow smile I had perfected. "How about you? How's the climbing crew?" Good, he said, shifting his weight. "Liam, he hasn't been around the gym much. I guess Isabel is keeping him pretty busy these days." My hand froze mid-signature on a form. Isabel? His ex-girlfriend, Isabel. The moment I said her name, I knew. The text, the blood draining from Liam's face, the desperate need to leave. David's face crumpled as he realized his mistake. "Oh, God, I thought you knew. They've been seen all over Lincoln Park. Someone said she's pregnant. I just assumed that's why he trailed off. He didn't have to finish." Isabel, the sophisticated gallery owner he had dated for years before me. The woman who had left him to take a job in London. He had told me they were all wrong for each other, that they wanted completely different things out of life. Apparently, one of those things was a baby. That was the night I finally, truly shattered. I hurled my wine glass at the living room wall and watched it explode, just like my life had. I screamed until my voice was a raw, bloody whisper. I found the beautiful lingerie I had bought for our honeymoon and tore it to ribbons. Then I slid down to the bathroom floor, curled into a ball, and cried until I was empty. A deep, suffocating depression settled over me. I still went to work, but I was just a ghost in scrubs. I lost 15 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. I stopped answering my phone. My mother's worried messages filled my voicemail, but I couldn't find the energy to call her back. It was in the middle of that darkness that I met Ethan. There was no movie-style meet cute. It happened under the harsh, fluorescent lights of the pediatric ICU at 3 a.m. His 8-year-old daughter, Chloe, had been admitted with severe complications from her cystic fibrosis. As a pediatric pulmonary specialist, I was called in for a consult. "She's usually tougher than this," he told me, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion and worry. "Ever since her mom passed away last year, she's been trying so hard to be strong for me." I looked over Chloe's chart. "Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who need the most help," I said, the words coming out before I even realized it. They were words I hadn't been able to apply to myself. Ethan was different from the other parents I dealt with. He was a nurse at another hospital, so he understood the jargon and asked sharp, insightful questions about Chloe's treatment. But more than that, he had a quiet strength that I recognized. He would sit by her bed for hours, reading her favorite stories aloud even when she was asleep, facing every new complication with a calm resolve. Chloe slowly started to get better, and I found myself making excuses to stop by her room even when I wasn't on her case. She had her father's kind eyes and a startlingly old soul. "Your eyes look sad," she told me one afternoon as I was listening to her lungs. My dad's eyes looked like that after my mom went to heaven. He thought I didn't see, but I did. Her simple, direct observation cracked something open in me that had been sealed shut for months. "I am sad," I admitted, and it was the first time I'd said it out loud to anyone, but I'm working on it. Ethan walked in just as I said it, carrying 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee. After Chloe drifted off to sleep, he found me at the nurse's station. "She's a pretty sharp kid," he said, pushing one of the cups toward me. "Whatever you're going through, and you don't have to tell me what, it gets easier. Not better, maybe, but the weight of it gets easier to carry." "Does it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Some days," he said, "and eventually those days start to outnumber the bad ones." We started talking more after that. It began with Chloe's care, but soon we were talking about books, music, and eventually the losses that defined us. In broken, hesitant sentences, I told him about Liam. He told me about his wife, Sarah, and her long battle with cancer, and about the struggles of raising a child with a chronic illness on his own. As Chloe's discharge date approached, Ethan asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime, outside the hospital. "Just as friends," he added quickly. "I think we could both use one." Friendship with Ethan was easy. He never expected me to be fixed or whole. He saw my broken pieces and simply sat with them, offering understanding instead of solutions. About 3 months after I met him, Dr. Chen left a flyer on my desk. It was for a support group called Starting Over, for people who had experienced sudden abandonment. "I'm not going to some pity party with a bunch of strangers," I told him bluntly. "It's not about pity," he said gently. "It's about knowing you're not the only one." I probably would have thrown it away, but Ethan encouraged me to go. I went to a group for widowers after Sarah died. He confessed over one of our coffee dates. It helped, just hearing that what I was feeling wasn't crazy. I went reluctantly. I sat in the back row of a sterile community center room, fully prepared to bolt at the first sign of a group hug. But instead, I found people who were just like me. Doctors, lawyers, stay-at-home parents, all of them blindsided by someone else's choice. No one offered cheap platitudes, they just told their stories. "I'm Maya," I finally said in my 3rd meeting, my voice shaking. "My husband left me at our wedding reception. I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to know how to fix things, including myself, but I don't know how. It wasn't a cure. It wasn't even close. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like a start. 5 years. It's amazing how much can change in 5 years." The woman who had sobbed on her bathroom floor was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone I was actually starting to like. The nameplate on my office door now read, "Dr. Maya Reynolds, Chief of Pediatric Pulmonology." The walls were covered in a mix of medical diplomas and crayon drawings from my small, brave patients. Ethan and I had built our life together slowly, piece by piece. We were both damaged goods, and we didn't want to rush anything. We went from being hospital colleagues to friends, and then, over 2 careful years, to something much deeper. He finally kissed me at Chloe's 11th birthday party. She cheered from the other side of the room and later told me she'd been waiting forever for us to get it together. By the time Ethan proposed last spring, Chloe's health had dramatically improved thanks to a new gene therapy trial. The 3 of us were already a family in every way that mattered. We shared a renovated house in a quiet suburb with a big backyard where Chloe conducted what she called botanical experiments. Ethan proposed out there with Chloe standing beside him, holding a wobbly, hand-painted sign that read, "Say yes," surrounded by about 1,000 exclamation points. "We already love you like you're ours," Ethan said, his voice soft as he held out a vintage sapphire ring instead of a diamond. "We just want to make it official." Life was steady. It was peaceful. And then we started planning the wedding. The very first bridal shop I walked into sent me into a full-blown panic attack. The consultant's innocent question, "Is this your first time getting married?" had me gasping for air in the parking lot. "We can do this a different way," Sarah soothed, driving me home. "No big white dress, no massive reception, whatever feels right for you." Ethan was just as understanding when I tearfully explained what had happened. "Maya, I don't need a big wedding," he promised, wrapping me in a hug. "I just need you." So, we decided on a small beach wedding. Just 40 of our closest friends and family, a justice of the peace, and a quiet dinner at a restaurant afterward. It was the complete opposite of my first wedding. I bought a simple, elegant blue dress that felt nothing like a wedding gown. Everything was going smoothly until I finally decided to clear out the last of my things from a storage unit. Most of it was old textbooks and winter coats, but tucked in a back corner was a box I had been avoiding for years. It held the few mementos from my first wedding that Sarah had saved. "You should probably go through that," my therapist had said. "Not to reopen the wound, but to see for yourself that it's closed." I dragged the box home one afternoon when Ethan and Chloe were out. Inside were greeting cards, a few photos, and the handwritten vows I had practiced over and over. And underneath all of it, I found something I never knew existed. A small sealed envelope with my name written in Liam's distinctive architectural script. My hands were shaking as I opened it. It was a letter, dated the morning of our wedding. "Maya, by the time you read this, we'll be married. I'm writing this down because I woke up this morning with a fear that's chilling me to the bone, and I need to get it out before I stand up there with you. I love you. Never ever doubt that. But I'm haunted by this feeling that I don't deserve you. You are so brilliant and good and sure of yourself. I admire that more than you'll ever know." Isabel texted me last night. After 2 years of total silence, she picks the night before our wedding to get in touch. She says she made a mistake leaving, that she needs to talk. I haven't answered, but her timing has kicked up all this old dust I thought had settled. I'm not writing this because I'm thinking about her. I'm writing it because her name popping up on my phone made me question if I've really closed that chapter. You deserve a man with no ghosts. By the time I say my vows today, I will have buried this feeling for good. I promise you all of my heart, not just the pieces that are left over from old battles. All my love, Liam. The letter fell from my numb fingers. He'd had doubts, normal pre-wedding jitters maybe that he was trying to work through, but then Isabel must have texted him again during our reception. What could that second text have said that would make him throw everything away? Before I could talk myself out of it, I was digging through my old contacts, looking for his mother's number. Eleanor Sterling had always been so kind to me, proudly calling me her future daughter-in-law. We hadn't spoken a word since the wedding. She answered on the third ring. "Maya? Is that really you?" "Hi, Eleanor," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." "Never, dear," she said, her voice warm. "I've thought of you so often. How are you?" We made small talk for a few minutes before she finally cut to the chase. "Liam made a terrible, terrible mistake," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A mistake he has regretted every single day." "I found a letter," I explained, "from our wedding day. He said Isabel had contacted him. I heard her sharp intake of breath over the phone. 'That woman,' she said, her tone turning to ice. She knew exactly what she was doing, getting in touch with him right before he married you." Over the next half hour, Eleanor filled in the blanks of a story I never knew. Isabel had texted Liam during our reception with a bombshell. She claimed she was pregnant with his child from a one-night stand during his bachelor party, a weekend I knew he had spent fishing with his father and brothers. He left to go confront her, Eleanor explained, her voice shaking with old anger. He was horrified, convinced he'd somehow blacked out and betrayed you, even though he had no memory of it. He was trying to figure out how to do the right thing. But there was no baby, I said, the truth hitting me like a physical blow. There was never a baby, Eleanor confirmed. By the time he realized she had faked the whole thing, she had him completely wrapped around her finger. Classic emotional abuse. When he finally broke away and tried to find you, you were gone. He thought you'd never forgive him. I hung up the phone in a daze, a strange mix of closure and fresh pain churning in my gut. He hadn't left me because he loved her. He'd left because of a lie, out of a twisted sense of duty. I told Ethan everything that night after Chloe was in bed. He just held my hand and listened. "Does this change anything for us?" he finally asked, his voice carefully neutral. I squeezed his hand tight. "No," I said, and I meant it. "It explains my past. It doesn't change our future." The week before our wedding flew by. Then, the night before the ceremony, I was doing one last check of my emails when a message popped up from an address I recognized immediately. The subject line was just one word: tomorrow. "Maya, your mother told me you called. I have written and deleted this email 1,000 times over the last 5 years. I don't expect you to forgive me, but before you start your new life, I had to tell you the truth. I made the biggest mistake of my life that day. I believed her lies instead of trusting you. If you would be willing, I would like to meet you, just once to apologize to your face. Liam." My finger hovered over the reply button for what felt like an eternity. Then I closed my laptop. Tomorrow I was marrying a man who had never once made me feel uncertain. The past had no place there. I dragged the email to the trash and emptied it without another thought. The morning sun glittered on the calm waters of the bay as I stood barefoot in the sand. A soft May breeze carried the smell of salt and wild roses. My blue dress flowed around my ankles, a world away from the heavy, formal gown of my first wedding. Up ahead, Ethan was waiting, looking impossibly handsome in a simple linen suit, his smile warm and sure. Beside him, Chloe was beaming in a little yellow dress, clutching a basket of wildflowers. This time, there was no long aisle, no booming organ, no pews filled with people I barely knew. There was just a simple path in the sand, which Chloe had decorated with seashells. Sarah walked just behind me, holding a small bouquet that matched my own. "Ready?" she whispered. I nodded, a sense of profound peace settling over me. The anxiety that had haunted my planning was gone. Deleted along with that email, today was about the future. The small group of our friends and family turned as a lone guitarist began to play. Not the wedding march, but "Here Comes the Sun," one of Chloe's favorites. I walked toward Ethan, my steps certain. When I reached him, Chloe took my hand and placed it in her father's. "Now we're really gonna be a family," she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear and chuckle. The justice of the peace, a friend of Ethan's, smiled. "We are gathered here today not to mark the beginning of something, but to celebrate what already is," she began. "Maya, Ethan, and Chloe have already built a family, bound by love, respect, and a whole lot of patience. Today is just the party." Ethan and I had written our own vows. They were simple promises that looked our pasts right in the eye. "Maya," Ethan began, his voice clear and strong, "I promise to honor the strength that brought you here, to support your dreams, and to be your partner in everything. I promise to remember that we both have scars and to be gentle with them. But most of all, I promise you we'll never ever have to walk alone again." My own voice shook just a little when it was my turn. "Ethan, I promise to cherish the beautiful, messy, wonderful family we have made. I promise to face every challenge by your side, not on my own. And I promise to remember that love isn't a fairy tale. It's a choice we get to make every single day. I choose us." Chloe stepped forward for her part. "I promise to try to pick up my socks," she announced seriously, getting a laugh from the small crowd. Then her voice grew soft. "And I promise to always be grateful that I have 2 people who love me this much." As we exchanged simple gold bands, I felt a lightness I never thought possible. It wasn't the giddy excitement of my first wedding. It was something far more real. It was peace. By the power vested in me, our friend concluded, I now pronounce you a family. Ethan's kiss was soft and sure, and then Chloe launched herself at us, wrapping her arms around both our waists, completing our little circle. Our celebration moved to a nearby restaurant with a deck overlooking the ocean. Twinkly lights glowed in the twilight as our guests mingled. Ethan's parents were laughing with my mother. Chloe and her friends were huddled in a corner, giggling over Shirley Temples. I was talking to a colleague when I saw Sarah's face suddenly change, her eyes fixed on something over my shoulder. A ripple of silence spread through the guests closest to the entrance. Maya. Ethan was at my side in an instant, his body going rigid. Don't turn around. But it was too late. Some deep primal part of me already knew. I felt his presence before I saw him. I turned, slowly, and there he was. Liam. He looked like a ghost of the man who had left me 5 years ago. His powerful frame was gone, replaced by a shocking thinness that made his clothes hang off him. There were deep, dark circles under his eyes, and his skin had a sick, sallow tinge that the doctor and me recognized immediately. What is he doing here? Sarah hissed, stepping in front of me protectively. Ethan's hand found mine, his grip a firm anchor. Do you want me to make him leave? I couldn't speak. The sight of him, the physical embodiment of my deepest pain, standing at my second wedding, created a dizzying collision of past and present. He took one hesitant step forward before a few of Ethan's friends moved to block his path. His eyes, full of a desperate devastation, never left mine. I just need 5 minutes, he called out, his voice raspy. Please, Maya. Ethan's jaw was tight, but he kept his voice steady. This is not the time or the place, man, he said, loud enough for Liam to hear. I know, Liam croaked, his gaze falling to the floor. I wouldn't be here if... I've been emailing, calling your office. I didn't know what else to do. The entire restaurant was silent now, the party frozen. My beautiful, peaceful new beginning was being invaded by the one ghost I thought I had finally laid to rest. 5 minutes, I heard myself say. Outside. Ethan looked at me, his face full of concern. Maya, you don't owe him anything. I know, I said, squeezing his hand. This isn't for him. It's for me. It's so this chapter can finally, truly be over. Sarah immediately fell into step beside me. I'm coming with you. We walked out onto the beach behind the restaurant. The May air had turned cool as the sun dipped below the horizon. Liam was waiting by the water's edge, his shoulders slumped. You've got 5 minutes, Sarah said, her voice flat as we walked up, and I'm not going anywhere. Liam turned, and in the dimming light, I could see just how much the years had ravaged him. Thank you for seeing me, he said. What do you want, Liam? I asked, my voice even. To apologize, to explain. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, a nervous habit I remembered all too well. Isabel lied about everything. There was no baby. She saw our wedding announcement and she wanted me back. Your mother told me, I said. He nodded. What she probably didn't tell you is that I lost everything because of her. My firm, my savings, my self-respect. He stopped, swallowing hard. She got me so twisted up, she convinced me you'd never forgive me for leaving. By the time I saw it all for the manipulation it was, she was already gone onto someone else. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said, and to my surprise, I meant it. But that doesn't answer my question. Why today? Why couldn't you just respect my decision not to answer your email? Because, he said, and his voice finally broke, I'm running out of time. The medical professional in me processed the signs with a cold, clinical clarity. The extreme weight loss, the jaundiced skin I could now see clearly, the exhaustion radiating from him. But the woman in me, the one who had once loved him, just felt a profound wave of sadness. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave me 6 months maybe. He took another step toward me, then his legs just gave out. He stumbled, a strangled gasp escaping his lips as he collapsed onto the sand. Sarah screamed. In an instant, all the pain in history vanished, and my training took over. I rushed to his side, dropping to my knees in the sand to feel for a pulse. It was rapid and thready. "Liam, can you hear me?" I said, turning his face toward me. His eyes fluttered. "Sarah, get Ethan, and tell the restaurant staff we need orange juice or a soda. Something with sugar now." I snapped, my voice switching into doctor mode. "Should I call 911?" she asked, already scrambling back toward the deck. I checked his breathing. It was shallow, but it was there. Not yet. This might just be exhaustion or low blood sugar. As Sarah ran for help, I was alone on the beach with Liam. My fingers were pressed to his wrist, counting the frantic beats of his heart, while just a few yards away, my own wedding celebration was still going on. History was repeating itself in the most twisted way imaginable, but this time, I was the one who had the choice to stay or go. Ethan arrived a moment later with Sarah, a glass of orange juice in one hand, his face a mask of professional concern. He knelt in the sand beside me without a second's hesitation, his own medical training overriding any personal feelings. "How long has he been out?" he asked, already pulling out the pen light he always carried to check Liam's pupils. "Less than 2 minutes," I said, taking the juice. "Liam, can you hear me? I need you to try and drink this." His eyelids flickered open, his expression clouded with confusion before he recognized me. "Maya," he mumbled. "I'm sorry. Ruining your day again." "Just drink," I said, ignoring his apology as I helped him sit up. Ethan supported his back, his touch firm and professional. "Should we call an ambulance?" Sarah asked again, hovering nearby. Liam shook his head weakly. "No hospitals. Not tonight." "That's not up to you," Ethan said calmly but firmly. "When was your last round of chemo?" Liam looked startled that Ethan knew, then realization dawned. "She told you." "Just now," Ethan confirmed, "and as a fellow medical professional, I am not letting you just walk away from this." "I checked myself out of Mass General yesterday," Liam admitted, his voice thin after he finished the juice. "Against medical advice, I had to see Maya before—" He couldn't finish. "You stopped your treatment to come find me?" I asked, the sheer recklessness of it sinking in. Liam's gaze met mine, and it was full of a terrible clarity. When they told me how bad it was, all I could think about was that I couldn't die letting you believe I left you for someone else. The truth, it suddenly felt like the only thing that mattered. The restaurant manager appeared, wringing his hands. "Is everything all right out here? Should I call for help?" "We have it under control," Ethan assured him smoothly. "Could you possibly bring us a few of those privacy screens and a chair?" Within minutes, the staff had helped us create a small private enclosure on the deck. Ethan made a quick call to a doctor he knew at the local Cape hospital, arranging for Liam to be admitted quietly without the chaos of the ER. "Why did you wait so long to try and find me?" I asked Liam once he was settled in the chair. 5 years, Liam. I spent 5 years thinking you chose her." "At first, I believed the lie about the baby," he explained, his voice still weak. "By the time I unraveled the whole story, the doctored sonograms, the fake medical records, she had convinced me that leaving you at the altar was an unforgivable sin. She said you would never, ever take me back." He sighed, the effort seeming to drain him. "She was an expert at isolation. By the time I got my head straight, you were gone. New job, new number, private social media. My mother knew how to reach me," I pointed out, a sliver of the old anger returning. "She wouldn't take my calls for 2 years," Liam said. "When she finally did, she told me you were happy and that I needed to leave you alone. And I did. I respected that. Until the diagnosis." Ethan, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "The cancer, how advanced is it?" "Stage 4. "It's in my liver," Liam said, his voice eerily steady. 3 months, they said, maybe a year with aggressive treatment. I've made my peace with it." A small voice cut through the heavy silence. "Mom? Dad? Is everyone okay?" Chloe pushed past the edge of the screen, her face pinched with worry. She stopped when she saw Liam, her childish curiosity overriding her concern. "Is he sick?" she asked. Her time in hospitals had given her a vocabulary far beyond her years. "Yes, sweetie," Ethan said gently. "This is an old friend of Maya's. He's not feeling well." Chloe walked right up to Liam, studying him with the frank, unafraid gaze of a child who knows illness intimately. "You look like I did before I got my new medicine," she observed, all yellow and tired. A ghost of a smile touched Liam's lips. "You must be Chloe. Your parents are very lucky to have you. Are you sad because you're sick or because of something else?" she asked with that uncanny perception of hers. "When my first mom died, Dad tried to hide being sad, but his eyes looked like yours do now." Liam glanced at me, then back at the little girl. "Both, I think," he answered her honestly. "Being sick is scary, but having regrets is a lot heavier." Chloe nodded sagely. "When I get scared, Dad says it's okay to be brave and still need help. That's why we found Maya. She helps people." The profound simplicity of her words hung in the air. Ethan put an arm around his daughter, his eyes shining with pride. "That's exactly right," he said, looking at me, a decision forming on his face. I knew what he was asking, and I nodded. "Liam," Ethan said, his voice full of a new authority, "we're taking you to the hospital now, and tomorrow we'll figure out getting you transferred back to your oncology team in Boston." "You can't," Liam protested feebly. "This is your wedding night." "You didn't ask," Ethan said simply. "As doctors, it's what we do. Our honeymoon to Nantucket was postponed for 3 days. Those days were spent on the phone, arranging Liam's transfer, speaking with his doctors, and having long, difficult conversations that peeled back 5 years of pain and misunderstanding. Liam told us about the depth of Isabel's manipulation, the way she'd cut him off from friends, controlled his finances, and threatened to ruin what was left of his reputation if he tried to leave. It was a textbook case of abuse, trapping a man who had once seemed so unshakable. "Why didn't you fight harder to find me back then?" I asked him on the second day. It was the question that still burned under the surface. "Because I believed I deserved to lose you," he said, his voice raw. "What I did, leaving you like that, it was unforgivable, no matter the reason. I thought the best thing I could do for you was to disappear." His words replayed in my mind that night as Ethan and I sat in our hotel room. "I should hate him," I admitted quietly. "A part of me really wants to." "But you don't," Ethan observed. "It wasn't a question." "I'm angry," I said. "I'm angry for the years I lost, for the pain he caused. But hating him, it feels like carrying around a heavy rock that I'm finally ready to put down." Ethan pulled me into his arms. "Forgiveness isn't about saying what he did was okay," he reminded me. "It's about your own freedom. It's for you, not for him." The morning we were supposed to finally leave for our honeymoon, we went to see Liam one last time. He looked a little better, the IV fluids and resumed treatment bringing a hint of life back to his face. "Your flight leaves in 3 hours," he said. "You shouldn't be here." "We wanted to say a proper goodbye," I told him. "I'd like to write to you," I offered, "if that's okay." "I'd like that," he whispered, his voice catching. "Maya, I held up a hand, stopping him. "No more apologies, Liam. What happened is part of our stories. It shaped who we are, but it doesn't have to define us anymore." We left him with our contact information and a promise to check in. As Ethan and I walked out of the hospital and into the bright sunlight, hand in hand, I felt a sense of release. It wasn't that the pain was gone, but it had changed. It was no longer a wound, but a scar, a visible part of my history, but one that no longer hurt to touch. Our taxi driver glanced at us in the rearview mirror. "Honeymooners?" he asked with a grin. "Yes," Ethan answered, squeezing my hand. "We just had to take care of one last important thing first." The sun caught the simple gold band on my finger as I turned to look out the window, watching the hospital grow smaller in the distance. Behind us was a past that we couldn't change, but ahead of us was a future we would build together, one that was richer and stronger for knowing that healing can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest freedom comes from letting go. End of story.